right, here we go. Third time's a charm, I hope, with 11.8, solving radical equations. My recorder's not working, so this is my third time to talk through this lesson. Not bitter at all. Not bitter at all. Okay, so here we go. We're solving radical equations, and what that means is that we have equations that have radical signs, or square root signs, that we have to deal with. So step number one is always to isolate the square root sign. Get that square root by itself. So in this case, we just need to get rid of this plus 7. The opposite of plus 7 would be minus 7. Yay, both sides. All right, so the 7's cancel, and you're left with that square root of x plus 1. And on the right, 10 minus 7 is 3. And this is where we have a new step. We got this square root by itself so that we could get rid of the square root sign. So our next step is to square both sides. The opposite of square rooting is squaring. So we're going to square both sides in order to get rid of that root. So we can get the x in there by itself. All right, so the square root of x plus 1 squared is just going to be x plus 1. And 3 squared on the other side is 9. Yay, then we're just going to keep solving whatever's left until we get x by itself. So in that case, minus 1, so x equals 8. I can write a third step in here, keep solving. But our last step, most important step, so important that I'm going to write it in orange, we have to check our answer. And a lot of times people are like, I don't need to bother with that. I did the right steps. I got it. When you square both sides of an equation, sometimes you create extraneous solutions, or solutions that aren't really solutions. They're some kind of an imposter. And so you have to check when you get to the end to find out, is that a real solution? So we take that 8 and put it back in for x. So 8 plus 1 plus 7 equals 10. The original equation, and I just put x, or 8 in place of x. So 8 plus 1 is 9. The square root of that is 3. Plus 7 equals 10. And we're always looking for the positive square root. If we wanted the negative square root, they would put a little negative in front of that. So you don't have to worry about plus or minus. We're just always taking the principal square root of the positive square root, and we evaluate that. And 3 plus 7 really is 10. Yay, it's done. That's a good solution. That's our final answer, x equals 8. Not so bad, right? Easy? Awesome. On we go. Okay, so on this side, we can do a little happy dance right away because step 1, where we isolate that square root, that's already done for us. There's nothing else on this side of the equation, so we can go ahead and square both sides in order to get rid of that square root so that we just have x plus 2 left over. On the right over here, be super, super careful. X minus 4 quantity squared really means x minus 4 times x minus 4. There are no shortcuts like x squared minus 16. That is absolutely not the right way to go about it. You have to write it out twice and FOIL it. So first I'll distribute that x. So x times x is x squared. X times negative 4 is negative 4x. Then I distribute the negative 4. So negative 4 times x is negative 4x. Negative 4 times negative 4 is positive 16. I have some like terms. I'm going to write it over here as I kind of clean it up. X squared minus 8x plus 16. Take your time to do this correctly. Don't try to take shortcuts that aren't there. All right, and then friendly reminder that when we have an x squared, that's a quadratic equation, we need to get it equal to 0 so that we can either factor it, or if it's not factorable, then we'll use the quadratic formula or completing the square. No, I never complete the square. If it's not factorable, I use the quadratic formula. You can complete the square if you really want to. So we need to get these things over there so that it's equal to 0. So I'm going to go ahead and minus x from both sides. And I'll subtract 2 at the same time just because I can, and then I can get 2 steps done at once. So 0 equals x squared minus 9x plus 14. Okay. Then we're going to check to see if it's factorable. We can celebrate that there's no coefficient other than 1 in front of x squared. So we can look at the 14 and say, hey, are there numbers that multiply to 14 and add to 9? Yes, there are. So we're going to make our parentheses. We can put our x's right in there. What numbers multiply to 14 and add to 9? 7 and 2. Signs are the same. Signs are both negative. Awesome. Remember that if we have this times this equals 0, then one or both has to be equal to 0. So we set them equal to 0 on their own. Each little set of parentheses equals 0, and we solve them. Some of you may be taking little shortcuts on here, and that's totally fine. If you remember that, I'm going through all the steps just in case somebody doesn't remember what to do here. Okay, so we got two solutions, x equals 7 and x equals 2. I didn't really need to write that plus in there. However, we have to check those to make sure that they both work. So let's check the 7. Square root of 7 plus 2 equals 7 minus 4. And I put our whatever number you get in for both of the x's. Anywhere there's an x in the equation, you put that number in there. So here we have the square root of 7 plus 2. 7 plus 2 is 9. Square root of that is 3. 7 minus 4 is also 3. Awesome. This is a good solution. X equals 7 is one of our answers. By the way, they can both be true, they can both be false, or you can have one of each. One true, one false. So you never know. Just because one of them is true doesn't mean the other one's false or vice versa. So here we go, putting 2 in for x. 2 plus 2 is 4. Square root of that is 2. And 2 minus 4 is negative 2. Uh-oh, is 2 equal to negative 2? Not so much. Therefore, this is not really a solution. It's an imposter created when we squared both sides of the equation back at the very beginning. So the only solution to this particular equation is x equals 7. Got it? It is incorrect, by the way, if you present two solutions and they don't both work. So if you had just left it as x equals 7 and x equals 2, say on a test, you would not get full credit for that question. It's that important. You have to check it. Get rid of the ones that don't work. All right. Speaking of not working, hoping this video actually recorded this time. Have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow.